About 50 years ago, an astronaut returning from the moon experienced things that he couldn't find a scientific explanation for. So, with some colleagues, he launched a new science focused on the mind and how it works in the body and across space and time. It's the field of Noetics, where the tools of modern science are used to help us understand how what we think and feel affects us and the world around us. Now, this is Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments from the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon.
This is Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, how it works, and how our lives could be much fuller if we understood it better. And I am Ruth Miller, a longtime student of consciousness, cybernetics, and culture, and through this series of programs I'm introducing some of the people whose work has defined this field of research, and I'm explaining some of their ideas and experiments. I'll also explore some relevant news items and answer questions that you send to my email address, ruth@noeticmoments.org. Now, through these programs, we've learned that although the medical world defines consciousness as what we are aware of now, most of what goes on in the mind is not in our conscious awareness at all, but goes on in unconscious processes. From Jung and Freud and other early researchers, we learned that our minds can be thought of as having three aspects. What we are aware of, our normal awareness, called the conscious mind, but then there's also what keeps our bodies going and includes our fears and beliefs about threats and dangers in the subconscious mind, and what connects us with our highest ideals and guides us in our actions, the superconscious mind. We learned that we can change our state of consciousness so we're aware of different aspects of mind at different times. Then we learned that the brain modifies whatever sensory signals it receives to fit past patterns of experience, following a default network or structure in the brain. And this means that we perceive, we see, hear, smell, taste, and feel what our brains expect to experience based on the past. We learned that no one has yet been able to pinpoint how ideas and thoughts are formed in brain tissue. And we saw that our body often responds faster than nerve impulses or chemicals can travel, and before we're aware of it. Some experiments have even demonstrated that a person's mind continues to perceive and process for as much as several hours, even when the brain and heart are flatlined and the person has been declared dead. Based on all this, many scientists have come to accept that what we call mind is not the product of the electrochemical activity of the cells making up the brain, but is, in fact, the activity of a field that surrounds and permeates the brain and the body. It's possible to measure at least a portion of this field as electromagnetic activity for several inches around the body, in what some say is an egg shape, extending from below our knees to a few inches above our heads. Mind, then, is a field, a pattern of energy that exists whether the body is functioning or not, and permeates and develops with the body and the brain. This means that the brain is best understood as a receiver-transmitter, receiving messages from the mind and transmitting them to the body, and receiving messages from the organs and the senses and transmitting them to the body, as what becomes the subconscious mind. Some researchers are exploring how the two hemispheres of our brain are involved in the information we receive, apparently from the world through our left hemisphere and from our mind through the right. And we've learned that this field that we call mind affects energy and matter in a variety of ways. For example, the experiments in quantum physics where the subatomic building blocks of the universe show up as energy or matter, depending on whether a mind is present to observe them. Or in the bodies of people and pets that have been observed to change when someone they're connected with, however far away they are, turns attention their way. Individuals and the collective human mind can change the readouts from random number generators on any computer and on the network of computers run by the Global Consciousness Project. Now, Every field is a unique pattern of vibration that's different from other fields, and they can vibrate along similar patterns, resonating with each other, so minds can affect each other across space and time. As a result of all of this, a growing number of scientists are seeing our individual mind as part of a larger field, equating mind with the quantum or zero-point field out of which all matter and energy arise. And some researchers are using the equations of quantum mechanics, consciousness, relativity, and computer learning algorithms to describe the role of consciousness in the formation of matter. Together, these understandings help explain things like the law of attraction, how the world around us mirrors what's going on in our focused attention, how we can access information through insight, intuition, and channeling, how dreams affect the body and overall consciousness, how music affects the body and the brain and connects us with other fields of mind, how we can enhance or slow down the healing process in the body through our thoughts and visualizations, and how the belief in a treatment can help a patient experience healing in the placebo effect, how remote viewing and telekinesis can work, and how we can get into a state of flow in which the mind and the brain are in sync, maximizing our effectiveness. You can catch up on our past shows on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where you'll also find links to the clips, the books, and the authors that I mention. Well, if what we're saying about mind is extrapolated further, then a whole new way of thinking about the body begins to emerge. Rather than the basis for all our experience, the body becomes the result of our experience, changing shape and condition according to what the brain receives from the mind, and then transmits to the organs and cells of the body. This is in part what cell biologist Bruce Lipton talks about in his Biology of Belief, and it has been demonstrated by adepts around the world for thousands of years. It seems to be the essence of the Egyptian idea that someone who has been properly trained can become what they called a god, that is, a light body. And in fact, most of the tombs that we've been able to unearth of those who have been trained in this way actually have small holes at some point high up for the light body to escape and move on to the next stage of being. One of the regions that has the world's attention for the past few decades around all kinds of mental capabilities is the region with countries in the Himalayas that practice Tibetan Buddhism. Here's a video about a woman who recently passed into the form of a light body.
She was my older sister. She died sitting in meditation posture. I asked her if she was in pain, but she started laughing. Lights appeared all around her as her body began to dissolve. At the end, I was able to lift her shrunken body with just one hand, like a doll. It was a good death.
All the nuns at Gebchak hope to achieve the body of light, for it signifies the end to the cycle of reincarnation. This miracle gives hope to those like Annie who are pursuing the same destiny.
Survival is not easy here, and the secret yogas are hard to master. But unlike worldly suffering, these hardships bring us closer to wisdom, to recognizing our true nature.
Closer to recognizing our true nature. Can you imagine how your life might be different if someone you cared for was laughing And as she was laughing, light would be sparkling all around her, and then her body would be shrinking as all the energy that had been sustaining it was being emitted by it, and all that was left was the little bit of matter that really makes up this body that we occupy. Fascinating. But this nun is only one of thousands that have gone through this. A friend of mine was a student of a man called Dudjom Rinpoche, and he tells of how the time came when Dudjom realized that it was time to pass his place in the lineage. He's in the Nyingma, Nyningma lineage, onto his sons. In that lineage, they marry and they have children. And so Dudjom went to his meditation room. They had a building at the back of the compound that they were living in southern France. And he got into meditation practice pose. He was sitting there, and after a couple of weeks, they decided they probably ought to have a doctor come in for a death certificate. But the doctor said, "No, I'm sorry, the body is too warm. I cannot sign a certificate of death." And it turns out that this practice of having a warm body is part of the process. It's fascinating, but as one of the nuns later says in the video you were just listening to, the practice of heating the body is part of the practice of making the shift. And some of you may have heard other mentions of this practice, the monks and the lamas who can sit in the cold with a wet blanket on and dry it with their body heat, or Shirley MacLaine in Out on the Limb being reminded that if she can just use that practice, she can be warm enough in a hammock with a single blanket in the top of the Peruvian Andes. Yes, I've used that practice too. It really works. I recommend it. And these people are using it as one of many practices, many yogas, to help them accomplish what is necessary to accomplish as bodies of light. That is, as realizing who and what their true nature is. So if what we've been saying about mind is accurate, if we're saying that who and what we are, our mind, is a field of energy, then the body is not who we are, and it makes very good sense that the field of energy that we are can be the totality of our being if we allow it and if we know how, which is the point of this kind of meditation, this particular form of training called DZOGCHEN, Dzogchen, practiced by the Nyingma lineage of men and women in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So now I'm going to let another Rinpoche explain more about Dzogchen.
So Dzogchen is a very special, unique practice in Tibetan Buddhism. And what we call is main focus on the view. So through view is come to the meditation. So normally what I teach in the what I call Path of Liberation course is Mahamudra. So Mahamudra is through experience, step-by-step practice. And now the Dzogchen teaching is through view. So, and there's special practice in Dzogchen called tekchu. Tekchu meaning cutting through. So cutting through concept, cutting through our ordinary conceptual box, sometimes what we call prison. So the prison of house, how to break that one. Sometimes what we call semji kangbushikba, meaning how to break the conceptual like prison and break through. So I received these Dzogchen teachings from my father. My father was a great Dzogchen meditation master. And one time I still remember that really helps me is one day me and my father, we are having lunch, and then my father stay on the mountain. There's a big window. From the window we can see the entire valley and sky. And we had lunch, and after lunch finished. So kind of quiet. So then I sit meditation posture in front of my father, pretend like I'm meditating. And my father said, "Are you meditating?" I said, "Yes." "Oh, yeah, actually there's nothing to meditate on. The view is fake. Meditation is fake." My mind became, So that was great kind of like introduction, absorption for me, really kind of like cutting through the concept. So that's really beneficial for me. So this is a kind of absorption style of cutting through the conceptual mind.
Cutting through the conceptual mind. Totally in alignment with what we're talking about. He's talking about the normal structures of the brain, the way that the brain latches onto an idea, the left brain in particular, analyzing and cutting it apart and making sense out of things and relating things. And he's saying, no, we have to stop that in order to be in touch with our true nature. So, light body, Dzogchen, an interesting concept, totally in alignment with the model of the brain and the mind that we've been talking about. Well, if you just tuned in, you are listening to Noetic Moments, a radio show exploring what consciousness is, how it works, and how our lives can be greatly enhanced as we understand it more fully. I am Ruth Miller, your host, and that sound tells me it's time to shift gears, to look at a book, to answer any questions you email to ruth@noeticmoments.org, and maybe take a look at what's going on in the news that can help us understand the role our state of consciousness plays in our experience. Well, if you were to do a Google search around light body, you would encounter lots and lots of stuff, as I have. The first thing that came up is the Gaia.com site. They're the ones that have the TV series on Gaia. It's actually a whole channel. And last October, they published something called The Light Body, or What is Light Body Activation and How to Activate It. And they say on that website that the light body is a metaphysical idea present in spiritual traditions representing a higher energy-based existence beyond the physical body. It symbolizes heightened consciousness, spiritual awakening, and an interconnected state. Associated with energy centers like chakras, it fosters balance, healing, and transformation. They say there are diverse interpretations, and they see it as a symbol. On the site, the Gaia.com site, it says the human energy field is made up of several layers. The terms etheric body, mental body, astral body, and emotional body are all aspects of the light body. Beyond these densities are further ways to activate the higher functions of the light body. They're pointing out that in electrical impulses, energetic bodies beyond the physical can be detected. They talk about aura photos and Kirlian photography that capture images of the light bodies, and they point out that shamans and gifted healers are regularly working with those fields. One of the things that they talk about is the Merkaba, which is an ancient Egyptian term, integrating three ideas: Mer, light; Ka, soul; and Ba, body. If you've ever been to Egypt, if you've ever seen the statues that are almost always present of the person who is buried in a tomb, that statue is supposed to contain the Ka, because the body no longer does. So the Merkaba is known as the chariot of the soul and must be activated to achieve ascension. And one person in particular, the Gaiam.com site talks about, is a man who calls himself Drunvalo Melchizedek, and he teaches a lot around the Merkaba, waking up through breath work and visualization, that sense of the light body moving around us. Now, the Gaiam.com site goes on. It says, once the light body is activated, more sincere practices in absolute love are necessary to elevate the light body to the rainbow body state. And this is absolutely in alignment with what we heard from the nuns on the Himalayan mountain. The site says the rainbow body is the result of maintaining a constant frequency of unconditional love. Having healed every wound, purified every thought, and released every judgment, the rainbow body will ignite. It's an absolute unwavering of this vibration that allows us to achieve ascension. The site suggests that both Jesus and the Buddha ascended in this form. In their perfection of the human, they became, quote, gods, unquote, and showed others the way to accomplish this frequency, just as those trained in these techniques in the Egyptian lineage, the heads of the state and the heads of the religious structures, were trained also to become light bodies. And some of the tombs of kings and queens and princes include a small hole way up at the top for their light body to leave the tomb. A section on experiencing the light body on the Gaia.com site says, have you ever been around someone who exudes sacredness? Amma, for example, comes to mind. This is a woman in India who is a radiant presence of what is felt to be the mother, the divine feminine. The text says, as soon as you're in their presence, you feel peaceful, inspired, and more fulfilled, way beyond charisma. This is a direct experience of a highly activated light body. The magnitude of their field influences your own vision, mind, and spirit. So there's a lot of material out there. This is Gaia.com. There are half a dozen other sites that address this. Wikipedia, if you want to go there. There's some videos on raising your vibrations to activate your light body. Some of these other sites are activating your light body by LEIGHTREMAINE, whatever that is. I'm going to say Leigh Tremaine or LeeTremaine.com. Another one is lightomega.org, creating a body of light through purification. A place called Center of Love and Enlightenment.net has What is Light Body as an article. Someone that's Anindita Palaus, Palaus, How to Activate Your Light Body, and so on. It looks like one could spend hours exploring this on just the Google search. There is one group that looks at the many levels of the light body. The Divine Soul Union says that there are 12 levels of the light body, and that each of them involves different powers or abilities. And in the yoga tradition, each of those powers or abilities are called siddhis, S-I-D-D-H-I. And a siddhi is a skill, a power, an ability, but it's also a distraction. So if you get caught up in using the siddhi and having it become who you think you are, you will not continue on the path of becoming the pure love, your essential nature, and ultimately experiencing the state called light body. All right, enough on that subject today. The other thing I wanted to share with you is a brand new report that just came out in the news this month, which is February of 2024. And that is that some scientists have succeeded in using a computerized printing mechanism to create a network of cells. The next adjacent strip of cells is nerve cells, and the next strip of cells is muscle cells. And they do this in a very soft biogel on a flat surface. So it's not like 3D printing where you're building up 3D. It's a different form of printing. And in this soft gel, these cells have been able to communicate from the brain cell to the muscle cell. So the realm of scientific inquiry is taking us closer and closer to that strange state of being that will not be entirely human, will not be entirely animal, will not be entirely alive, but will display a lot of those characteristics. It'll be interesting to watch this unfold, especially in combination with the continuing work in robotics and artificial intelligence. Oh boy. Printing brain cells, and they're very excited. I have no idea what that's going to mean as the science of consciousness continues to unfold and point out that everything already is conscious. Well, that's it for today's show. We are out of time for today, but remember, you can continue the exploration on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where there are links to archived past shows along with links for titles and other resources that we refer to on the show, and where you can send me your comments and questions, which I will do my best to get answered by the next time we're on the air. For now, thanks for joining me here on Noetic Moments, recorded in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon. And have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments. This program is produced in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in beautiful Florence, Oregon, supported by you, our listeners. Our theme music is Tumbling Planets, composed and performed by Jeff Lovejoy. To hear this program again or learn more about Noetic Sciences, search our website, www.noeticmoments.org.